All right. Many of you have asked for it, and I was planning on doing it anyway, but enough people have asked for it. And it kind of, I don't know what the right term for it is. It kind of makes me feel good that people care enough. Many of you have been asking what I would do if I was the Mariners this offseason. And look, the obvious answer is to tell John Stanton to open up those checkbooks, baby, and just sign everybody. Just go ham and cheese and sign every possible free agent. Offer Shohei Ohtani whatever the heck he wants. Offer Cody Bellinger whatever the heck he wants. Offer all these guys whatever money they have. And look, I've made it abundantly clear that I think the Mariners' payroll is too low. I think the Mariners have cried poor far too often. But I also do recognize that teams operate with a budget. And some teams' budgets are going to be higher than others. The Mariners' budget is never going to be a top 5 or top 10 payroll again. It's just not going to happen. I wish I was wrong. But it's very hard for me to imagine based on what they've done in the past, with some exceptions. Some exceptions that have also kind of proven the rule more than anything else. But based on what they've done in the past, based on the comments made by ownership and front office folks, there's no reason to think that they're going to spend a exorbitant amount of money in free agency or trade for guys that are going to a bunch of guys that are going to cost significant amounts of money. So I went about this kind of trying to be realistic and also trying to be these are things I want to see done. And this is my channel and yada yada yada. It sounds terrible. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to do this the fun way while also trying to be a little pragmatic. We'll see how it comes out. I'm going to ask you to hit like. I'm going to ask you to hit subscribe. I really appreciate it. Would love to get to that 1,500 mark by the end of the year. We're close ish. We're pretty darn close. We're closer to it than not. That's how numbers work, I guess. Before we get into it, though, let's thank the good people of Simply Seattle for sponsoring the show. Simply Seattle offers the very best in Seattle sports gear. Whether you're a fan of the Mariners, the Seahawks, the Kraken, the Sonics, the Storm, the Sounders, the Huskies, the Cougars, all sorts of great Seattle sports teams, you can find all sorts of great gear like hats, t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys. They're the best. And once you find everything that you want, go to simplyseattle.com. Enter that code of MollyWatt15 and you will save 15% on your order. Awesome stuff from awesome people. www.simplyseattle.com. And that code again is MOLLYWHOP15. I'm going to go take a drink. So you'll probably see these videos paused a couple of times. I just recorded an hour-long podcast. And yeah, my voice for sure will be shot by the end of this video. You're going to watch me hit the do not disturb button real quick. Perfect. Okay. So again, I tried to be realistic. There's no way to really be realistic. I do not work for the Seattle Mariners. I do not have a ton of inside sources with the organizations. I have people who tell me things from the Mariners and, from other organizations. But I am going to try to be having fun with this and a little realistic. Maybe this is just my way of saying, be nice to me. If you disagree with this plan, just be nice. The world needs more niceness right now. So the big question, of course, is going to start with Shohei Ohtani. Would you sign Shohei Ohtani? I think the obvious answer to that question is heck yes. He's the best baseball player I've ever seen. It's not particularly close. To be able to do what he does at the plate, as a pitcher, on the bases, and not be anywhere close to past his prime. Give him whatever the heck he wants. Nothing I've seen suggests the Seattle Mariners are going to do that. I pray I'm wrong. So, yes, that would be number one on my list. But it seems so unrealistic to me at this point. And please make this a freezing cold take. Please. I beg of you to post this all over the internet. I just don't think Shohei Ohtani is a realistic addition to the Seattle Mariners. These 6 players I'm going to suggest they add all are, in my humble estimation. May not be realistic that they get all 6. And a couple of players that I'm trading away, and I'll just tell you those players when we get to it. We'll just kind of go position by position. But there's 6 major additions that I'm making to this roster. I wish Shohei Ohtani was one of them. He's not. But I wish he was. Okay. Let's just go position by position. Catcher, I'm not doing a whole heck of a lot. Cal Raleigh, big dumper, is my starting catcher. I don't see any reason to really change that. I would love to bring Tom Murphy back and play him as much as possible against left-handed pitching. I do want to see Cal Raleigh get more at bats against left-handers because I want to see him progress in that form. I want to see him because he was good against him in 2022 in a limited sample. He was not great against him last year. We'll get to it in the player review stuff. But I'm not making any changes to the catching position. First base. Making changes. I am trading Ty France. I don't know where. I wrote down San Francisco. I think it kind of makes sense. I love Ty France. The player, the person. More the person than the player, though. I just don't see that skill set aging well. It has nothing to do with his contract. It'd be perfectly fine for me to bring him back at his salary if I thought he was still the type of player that we saw for 2021 and half of 2022. Sure. I don't see him as that player. I'm trading him. I'm hoping to get a couple neat little prospects back. Probably B-level guys. I just think San Francisco makes sense as like a landing spot for a team that can use the help for that type of player. And you look at the analytics, a lot of analytical people really like Ty France because he doesn't strike out a ton. Doesn't make a ton of hard contact. But I do think Ty France makes sense to the Giants or somebody else who's looking for a first baseman. And I'm signing Rhys Hoskins. I'm giving Rhys Hoskins a 2-year deal with a mutual option for the 3rd year. May make more sense to give him a 1-year deal with a mutual option type of thing. Because I think Rhys Hoskins would probably like to go somewhere. There's 2 things for Rhys Hoskins. So for those of you who don't know, Rhys Hoskins missed all of the 2023 season. So if you're Rhys Hoskins, you probably have 2 thoughts. The first thought is I want to go out and rake, and I want to go and re-hit this market in 2024, showing that I am still one of the better power hitters in baseball. And when Rhys Hoskins has been healthy, he has been one of the better power hitters in baseball. I want his power in the lineup. I want to give him that shot, knowing that if Rhys Hoskins is not going to be the type of guy that if he doesn't work out, it destroys the Seattle Mariners. It's not going to be anything close to that. I want Rhys Hoskins. I think Rhys Hoskins makes a ton of sense for what this team needs. There will be competition, for sure. But that's my first move. Well, it's not really my first move. It's the move I'm making at first base. At second base. So this was a little bit trickier for me because I really like Ryan Bliss. I've talked about it ad nauseum, but I really like Ryan Bliss. I think he is a starting second baseman. I'm just not in the position where I want to count on it. Does that make sense? Your argument could be don't make a rash move. See if Ryan Bliss is your starting second baseman and then go make that move, right? You could do it that way. I would rather the opposite. I would rather see Ryan Bliss rake in Tacoma and then call him up because you can find at bats for him. You can find at bats for him even if you add a second baseman. Anyway, long story short, this is not, again, Chris, why do you care? Why do you care what people think about you so much? Anyway, that was a little bit of insanity. You guys are used to it by now. I'm making a three-way deal. I am trading Eugenio Suarez to the Toronto Blue Jays. I am trading a starting pitcher from the Toronto Blue Jays and probably a prospect to the Cincinnati Reds. And I'm trading Jonathan India to the Seattle Mariners. Now, look, Jonathan India was not great last year. He had flashes of brilliance. He is an upgrade on what they have at second base, and that is an understatement. We'll get to Josh Rojas in our player review stuff. I think he was actually better than most people thought. But it was Jonathan India is a better player. He's a better defensive player. He has more upside. I think he makes a ton of sense for Seattle. So you've got that side of the infield. Rhys Hoskins and Jonathan India. I like both those players a lot. India, again, just a 100 OPS last year, has contact issues, but draws a lot of walks, plays good defense. I think he has the potential to be a 25-plus stolen base guy. Would probably run more in Seattle than he did in Cincinnati. I think he makes a lot of sense. Obviously, I think that if I'm suggesting this. And I think this trade is fairly realistic. Eugenio Suarez, I think, I like Eugenio Suarez. Toronto can afford Eugenio Suarez to be at the level he was last year more than Seattle can. And the fact that he plays that quality defense, I think, keeps that trade value pretty high. But I've already heard some people talk about Eugenio Suarez potentially being a fit for the Blue Jays. Why not make that a 3-team deal where Cincinnati improves their starting rotation and Cincinnati basically has to trade Jonathan India? They have so many young infielders, so many good young infielders, so many good infielders who are already playing well. It's very hard for me to imagine that he plays for the Reds next year. I think he's a fit in Seattle. I thought he was a fit in Seattle before the Reds, became contenders and weren't going to trade Jonathan India. Now's the time where I think it makes the most sense. So yeah, love you, Gino, but we're trading you. Cincinnati's improving their rotation and probably their prospects. Maybe Seattle has to add a prospect too. And Cincinnati, you're improving your rotation. Seattle gets their second. So I think I've made it pretty clear that I would like JP Crawford to actually be the second baseman for the Seattle Mariners. I don't really see the shortstop that they would be getting to make that move realistic. So I think you're going to have to deal with another year of, I'm sorry, folks. I know a lot of people disagree with me. I know a lot of people who agree with me too, but you're going to have to deal with one more year of mediocre defense at shortstop. JP Crawford, who was so fantastic with the bat and more than makes up for it at this point, even though I think at second base, he's a star. He's a fine shortstop. He's a fine one more year of this type of thing. Then you got to move him to second base. But I'm leaving JP Crawford at shortstop. I'm as surprised as anybody else. All right, so you have a hole at third base now. You traded Eugenio Suarez to the Toronto Blue Jays. Heimer Candelario is perfect for what Seattle wants to do. The only reason why I'm not sure if Heimer Candelario is going to be a Seattle Mariner is because I think a lot of teams think Heimer Candelario is perfect for what they're doing. He's a switch hitter. He's a fine defensive player. He's not a great defensive player. It's a drop in defense. And that's maybe my biggest concern with what would be my plan is the fact that your defense on that side, not great. Suarez being next to JP helps a lot. There's no question about that. But I think Candelario is good enough and a significant, maybe too strong of a term, but an upgrade offensively. A certain upgrade. Significant, going to depend on if those balls start going over the fence for Suarez again. And it wouldn't shock me. Wouldn't shock me one bit. But I think Heimer Candelario is a great fit for Seattle. A great fit. The contract shouldn't be ridiculous. I like it. I like Heimer Candelario as a Seattle Mariner. All right, the outfield. We're making some changes, folks. And it's kind of bearing the lead a little bit. So the Seattle Mariners, we don't get Shohei Ohtani. That's a bummer. It's made a lot less of a bummer if you go out and you trade for Juan Soto. And I talked to a bunch of people today. A bunch of people. One of my perks of my job. Juan Soto's being traded. I will be stunned if Juan Soto isn't traded. And I don't think there's an organization that matches a trade for Juan Soto better than the Seattle Mariners. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole what's it going to take type of thing because I'm not willing to have that argument. But here's what I will say. In order to get Juan Soto, you are going to have to move quite a bit. Not as much as they gave up to get Soto. It shouldn't be. Juan Soto will be a free agent at the end of the year. But it's not going to be cheap. But he's well worth it. One of the best young offensive players I've seen in my many years of doing this. He gets on base. He hits for power. He hits for average. The average has been a little bit of a drop, the last couple of years. I still believe in that hit tool so much. I will guess that there are a lot of 300, 400, 500 seasons for Juan Soto coming up. Not a great defensive player, so he has to hit. But I think in this type of trade, and this is just my guess and my little dream thingy. I'm sorry for so many caveats in this video, but I'm going to keep entering them. Jared Kelnick is headed to San Diego. And one of George Kirby and Logan Gilbert. And the determining factor will be what prospects they attach with him. If you're trading Kirby with Juan Soto, don't think you're attaching too many more elite guys. Now, guys, top 5 prospects. I don't think you're destroying the farm system. If it's Gilbert instead of Kirby, you're probably going to have to attach quite a bit more. So that's kind of the YMMV, your mileage may vary type of thing. Which one would you prefer? I'd probably prefer to trade Gilbert and add some prospects to it. I mean, you're going to have to add prospects again. Jared Kelnick and George Kirby are not enough for Juan Soto. Obvious point is obvious. How much more are you willing to add? I would guess you're moving one of your big shortstop names. Cole Young, Colton Emerson, uh, Feldman Celestin probably has a lot of interest. Lazaro Montes probably has a lot of interest. You're still going to have an okay farm system after the deal, but you are moving significant stuff. And I think it's well worth it. I want Juan Soto. I want Juan Soto really, really bad. I might know I want Otani more, but it's not that far behind. Juan Soto could pitch. That would be, but he's a special offensive player and he's so young. He's only going to get better. So yeah, I'm trading for Juan Soto. To be my left fielder or right fielder, I don't care. Probably left field because we'll talk about right field in a sec. I'm probably not trading Julio Rodriguez. I know. Shock. Give you guys a couple of seconds here. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Julio Rodriguez is good. Right field. I'm signing Jorge Soler. And I kind of prefer him to be my DH. And I know the Mariners have come out and said some stuff that, like, hey, if a DH makes sense here, great. JD Martinez would be really high on my list. I don't think the Mariners are going to sign JD Martinez. I just can't picture it. I would love it to happen. I think he'd be a great fit for the clubhouse, for everything. But I'll take that offensive upside of Jorge Soler. I want power, and Soler has it up the you-know-what. He had a really solid season last year. I don't think he's going to break the bank. Again, I don't care about the money stuff. But I want Jorge Soler on my baseball team. I was a big fan of him the last couple of years. I thought the Braves, trading. I'm really trying not to say that word. I don't care if you give whatever. Anyway, Jorge Soler, I wanted him to be a Seattle Mariner, and I thought that trade by Atlanta was a stroke of genius. It was a huge pickup for him. He's had some inconsistency, but he's still a pretty darn young player who has elite power production potential and has put up elite power production. Again, my concern here is I'm sacrificing some defense here. There's no question about it. I am sacrificing some defense. But guess what? I have Julio Rodriguez in center field. He's going to help an awful lot. He's going to help an awful lot. All right. So you traded either George Kirby or, for that weirdness. It's not weird. It's just I feel bad sometimes when I'm moving around in the chair. It's not comfortable to sit here for 23 minutes and talk. You traded one of your starting pitchers. You still have Luis Castillo and either Logan Gilbert and George Kirby. Or George Kirby, excuse me. You got Bryce Miller. You have the return of Marco Gonzalez. I've heard some talk about them maybe trading him. I maybe. You got Brian Wu. You got Emerson Hancock, who's expected to be healthy. Got some other young arms. You'll have Robbie Ray back in the second half of the year. Tough to count on. Long story short, I think they need to add a starting pitcher. And I'm going big here. I'm signing Blake Snell. I really like Blake Snell. I think he's one of the more fun personalities in baseball. I think Blake Snell would like to be a Seattle Mariner. I've heard some people tell me that he would like to be a Seattle Mariner. I don't think he's taking a huge discount to be a Seattle Mariner. But I want Blake Snell. As much of a strength as the starting rotation is, if you have to move one of those guys, like I just talked about, and in my scenario, you do, I think you need a top of the rotation type of guy. And Luis Castillo and Blake Snell. So proud of myself that I haven't called him in yet. Luis Castillo, Blake Snell, Kirby or Gilbert. Oh, and then you're adding Ray, and then you're probably getting some steps forward from Miller and Wu. That's nasty, folks. That is nasty. So that's what I would do. And obviously, you're going to have to do some other stuff too. Yeah, we talked about Tom Murphy briefly. You got to bring in a backup catcher. Blake Hunt also could be that guy. Um, you're going to probably need to add one more bat to that as well, unless you plan on doing the rotating DH thing, which, I don't like, but it is what it is in that regard, I guess. I'd love to see them add JD Martinez to this. I just feel like that's maybe asking a little too much. And I'm not saying any of this is realistic. If you were asking me to guess what number of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 moves that I projected get made, one, maybe, very good chance at 0, very good chance of 2 of 3. Certainly not all 7. But enough of you asked what I would do that I'm telling you what I would do. And I think if you do all of this, or even 5 out of 7 of this, particularly a trade for Soto and the signing of Snell and signing a bat like Soler or Martinez, you're talking about a World Series contender. That's all I want. I want to contend for a gosh dang World Series. So, what would you do? Which of these moves is your favorite? Which of these moves is your least favorite? I'm asking. Sometimes when I ask, I'm not actually. What's the nice way of putting this? I've learned my lesson sometimes that if you put out a tweet, although I've learned the lesson and then quickly not followed it, that if you put out a tweet, if you put out something, you are asking someone else's opinion. But sometimes you really actually don't care. I care about this, mainly because I love all of you. And also because I'm genuinely interested in what the heck you guys think the Mariners should do. And again, please hit like, please hit subscribe, follow me on those websites. I have a couple of blue sky codes. If anybody's interested, send me a direct message on the old, whatever they call that now. You should be going over there. Much better website. Anyway, that's what I would do. I'm trading for Juan Soto. I'm signing Blake Snell. I'm signing Rhys Hoskins, Heimer Candelario, and Jorge Soler. I'm trading Eugenio Suarez, and I'm trading Ty France. What would you do?